The Voice 17104.com.
Welcome to the Griot Collective, Nathaniel Gadsden's Griot Collective. I clearly am not Nathaniel Gadsden, but I am honored and blessed to be able to sit in on his behalf. He did say he's sorry that he's going to miss it, but you know how they say one person's, I wouldn't say loss, but it's another person's gain. So I am here with Lyndon Kirkland. And just in the few moments that I've had a chance to listen to and introduce myself and be introduced to Mr. Kirkland, I am excited. No telling where this conversation will take us, but I am absolutely excited. Mr. Kirkland, how are you this evening?
I am doing excellent, Wendy. Thanks for asking. Let me say Hotep. Let me say Hotep to the family out there this evening.
Hotep. All right. So I know, and I got a little bit of your background, and I know that you are a historian, a researcher. I know that you do a lot with Black excellence and African origins. And one of the things that you said, particularly around Black History Month, you get a lot of requests, but you do this 365 days a year. And that's kind of one of the things, I want to say happy Black History Month, but we who do this and don't have an option to do anything other than that, and those of us who are fortunate enough to not have to do anything other than that, I appreciate that. Tell us a little bit more about yourself. What would you like for us to know?
Well, like most folks, Wendy, I work every day. I do have a day job. I'm always trying to get my dollars up, but I'm actually I'm a banker. So I work for a major Wall Street firm.
Okay.
And I'm married to my college sweetheart of 28 years. I have 2 adult sons.
Wow, that is wonderful. Well, congratulations!
Yeah,
Congratulations.
So not a big resume for me.
No, I think that's a pretty impressive. That's a pretty impressive resume. Not a lot of people can say those things. So I think that's pretty impressive. So you mentioned some of the things that you've been doing, which I think are really kind of cool. You mentioned you did a presentation for the National Panhellenic in Florida, and you did a presentation in Mount Vernon. What other things do you have going on, and do you have anything coming up? Where next? Where will this journey take you next?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think right now I might have one more coming up. I mean, I think maybe next week. And that'll pretty much be it as far as like Black History Month is concerned.
Okay.
But like I said, I guess around this time people think about me, to do presentations like this. But
sure.
I'm actually talking about this kind of stuff all year round. I'm reading and studying every day, Wendy, about about our people, our history and culture. I'm having exchanges with a number of groups I'm a part of. For example, just to mention the Happy Network. It's funny, you were playing a song, an intro song earlier called Happy. But when I think about Hapi or Hapi, you think about our ancestors in ancient Kemet or Egypt, if you will. They always tell the story where they come from. And they say, we come from down south. We come from the mountains of the moon where God Hapi dwells, which is the Nile River, right? Because the Nile River was basically the seedbed of civilization right there, right? So I was part of a group in Jamaica, Queens, New York, and it was actually titled Black Excellence, where we basically it was an opportunity for folks like us who have this interest, a conscious community. And then, you know, you had your leading scholars there, your Kaba Kamenes from Hidden Colors, you know, Heavy as the Crown, Out of Darkness, you know, Professor James Small, you know, you had Dr. Susan Tata from the Pan-African Network in South Africa. You know, you had Dr. Georgina Fulu, you know, and folks like that. You know, you had the directors of Out of Darkness, and Heavy as a Crown there. You had Riza Islam was there, you know, so it was like an all-day event where you brought in all this energy, all this, what I like to call first frequency folks, right? Just to have an incredible exchange around who we are, our excellence, you know, where we've been and where we still must go, right?
Yes.
So that's kind of like where I'm at right now. You know, like I said, sometimes I just get called to step in sometimes to do things like that, and I'm happy to do it, right? So eventually we'll get to a point where maybe I start formalizing this stuff, and you know, and have a.
Okay, you froze there for a second. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So let's go back. I mean, that is truly amazing, but let's go back. Where did this start? Did you grow up hearing this, or was it something, was there a spark? Where did you start with this being something that you were so involved in?
That's a great question. I think it's my fate. But obviously I grew up around a family that was like very conscious, you know, very, very active in the community. I mean, you know, they were organizers, you know, they struggled. I mean, you know, call it Black Panthers, whatever you want to call it. But there are always these really cool books laying around my house, right? And I said in one presentation, that my parents had these books around the house, never asked us to read any of the books, right?
Wow.
But I thought they were really cool books. And it's interesting because they were, I come to find, I've only seen them 2 times in my life. I've seen the set 2 times in my life. I heard about a set, but they're called Great Books of the Western World, right? And it's about all basically the Western scholars. Like, for example, this is a book on Hippocrates, the so-called father of medicine. And interesting enough, in this book, when you open it up and look at the first chapter, you'll see that Hippocrates, the Greek quote unquote father of medicine, is paying homage to a man by the name of Imhotep, the world's first multi-genius, world's first physician, right? Paying homage in the first chapter. So I'd be reading like that. And then as I start going through school, I think really my reading and my studying took off the first time I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. I was a young fella then, and I was just so impressed, you know, how a man could, you know, change his life like that, right? You know, I mean, don't get me wrong, we love Dr. King, right? And I love Dr. King, but it always seems that Dr. King was pitted against Malcolm X because King come from the academy, and Malcolm X was basically a hoodlum who pulled himself up and rose above his circumstances, right? But the way he used to break down words, Wendy, you know, like he understood the etymology and philology of words, right? And I was like, wow. And then, you know, when I got to the university, I continued just participating in organizations like that, you know, Black Action Society, you know, marches, you know, protesting against apartheid and things like that. But when I went to graduate school, a gentleman traded me a book on Malcolm X called The African Origin of Civilization, Myth or Reality by Sheikh Anta Diop.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, once I read this book, right, this guy, he's the father of Egyptology as far as I'm concerned, the Senegalese scholar. And when I read this book, I mean, everything just, my third eye just opened up, right? My pineal gland thawed out, and I just started devouring books after that. I went to the index, you know, or the bibliography, and I just started reading all those books. And then what happened was that as I had children when they were young, there was nothing going on in their schools. So I would step in and just start doing stuff. And mind you, my presentations were very elementary then, you know, very rote. I was just spitting facts then, so they were kind of like boring, right? so they ended up evolving, and then we enrolled them in a private school, and I did a prezo there one time, and then Next thing I know, I got a check in the mail. So, I started doing more and more, started refining them. I started becoming, more thorough, with my craft, and, incorporated pictures, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like show folks like what we're talking about, because some of the things I talk about, when you've been programmed to think one way for 40, 50 years, Wendy, and then you get somebody like me come and talk about some of the things we're going to talk about tonight, you might find that hard to believe, because all your life, you were raised this one way, or you were taught that this is the way by other
Right.
folks. You might defend that to a point where you might, like I'm saying, like, even though I might present you evidence, you may still defend that other position, right? I think Franz Fanon called that cognitive dissonance. But anyway, I got better with that kind of stuff like that, and I evolved, and I kind of like got to where I am today.
That is wonderful. I grew up in a household where we, well, for one, we weren't allowed to come home with average grades. So my
Right.
father had this theory that he was above average. My mother was above average. And so he would say, so above average plus above average is above average. So we had to have above average grades. But he always made us read about and study the pyramids and things like that, because he said that, and he would tell us, and as kids, we were like, daddy's speaking in parables again. We don't really, but he would say, we created math, we created the sciences, you come from greatness, you come from great minds. And so he said that, it's not, we were told it wasn't possible for us to not do well in math, because it was, genetically in us, because we created it. And so just hearing some of the things that you're talking about, and being in the schools that we went to, we would say these things, and people did not, they did not receive it. They did not receive it well. What do you do when people don't receive, that cognitive dissonance? How do you say, I've got to convince them, or what do you do?
No. I think when I first started out, I used to be like that, because, when you come into enlightenment, and you get this information, it's almost like, I mean, I'm not knocking anybody. When you get baptized, you want to run out on every street corner in Harrisburg or York, start talking about, praise God, right?
Right.
You want to run and tell everybody,
Right.
because you're hoping that everybody sees it and gets it like you get it, right? But you can't do that. So I've learned over time that you got to drip on Black folks. You got to give it to them in pieces, right, in order for them to get it. And it's and that's why I said, like, I show pictures, right? Because what do they say about a picture, Wendy?
Speaks 1,000 words.
Worth 1,000 words, right?
Yes.
So, and you're absolutely correct when you talk about math, science, music, art, agriculture, chemistry, philosophy. It all comes from us, right?
Absolutely.
In this Great Lakes region I was telling you about, right, in the areas of Africa that would be the countries of like Ethiopia, Tanzania, Kenya, the Congo, right? That excellence and that greatness is etched in our DNA. Now, I have a math degree from the University of Pittsburgh, right? And I got to tell you, early on, I was a terrible student. Terrible student. I ain't gonna make no amounts about it. I went from being a terrible student to a great student, but I ain't never know that, for example, like the oldest measuring device on Earth, called the Ishango bone, comes out of the belly of Africa in the Congo 25,000 years ago. And Europeans or white folks that saw that would try to tell you that it was a digging tool, until you get the right people looking at it. And then they found out that they saw some markings on there that would show that back then that they were multiplying by doubles, decimals, base 10, stuff like that. And then, speaking of the pyramids, right? So there's 90 plus pyramids in Egypt, right? And they were built between what you might call Dynasty 1 and I think Dynasty 6. The ones that are the main one we focus on today is called the Great Pyramid. It's actually 3 of them there, and they're at what's called the Giza Plateau, right? This is a techno complex. So the big one, built for the king Khufu, the Greeks called him Cheops. around 2400 BCE, BCE being before the Common Era. We may know that as before Christ, but that pyramid is astrologically dead smack in the center of the earth, right? So you take your longest latitudinal line, your longest longitudinal line, and that pyramid encompasses that amount of space on earth, right? The cardinal directions, it's a square, so it's a triangle basically. The square, north, south, east, and west, it lines up directly, right? Because they lined that pyramid up at the time, like 5,000 years ago, with a North Star called Alpha Draconis. Now, most people might be like, so what, Kirkland, what does that mean? I say, wow, because in order to do that, Wendy, that means that, first of all, we would have had, you would have had to been on earth for a long time to be able to observe the heavens and to know, right, to know the axis that the earth is tilted on, 23.2350 degrees. You would have to know its wobble. You would have to know the circumference of the earth, its measurements, right, in order to do that. So furthermore, right, let's stick with the pyramid, 2.5 million blocks weighing 2.5 tons each. They say some of the cornerstones are like 700 tons, right? Took them 26 years to build it. You can pluck a hair off your head right now and you can't put it in between those blocks, right? Wow. 700, so the base is a square, 755 feet. The height is 481 feet, Wendy. So let's say, for example, we let the base be the circumference. You take the height, let that be the radius. You square that, take the ratio of that to the circumference, you get pi.
Wow.
They built that into that pyramid, right? You get another constant called phi up in there, right? Now there's 3 pyramids there, 2 of them equidistant from each other. One of them is off kilter. They line up with the belt of Orion during a certain time of the year. So if you ever heard the saying, "As above, so below," that's what this is, right? Because our ancestors were also, although they were concerned about things that were going on earth, they were also concerned about where they were going to return to, the heavenly realm. So hence the emphasis and the obsession with what was going on in the cosmic world.
Wow.
Right. And if you go and look at, and those things weren't just randomly built over there, those monuments, right? Like the temples that were built in the southern part of Kemet all line up with the southern sky. Because when you've been on Earth, and I'm talking about Homo sapiens, right? Man or woman as we are today, for a 200,000 year period, nobody left the continent of Africa.
Wow.
So we had a lot of time to be observing the stars in the sky, because the sky was clear back then. And you got to understand, nature was our first teacher. And everything started out, we were an agricultural society. So, you talk about feeding yourself crops and all that kind of stuff like that, understanding the flow of the Nile River and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you had better gotten it right. So these African scientists, I mean, just the precision, because those monuments are just so precise, right? I mean, imagine that. I think I forgot the fraction that pyramid due north might be off, right? And further, if you run a meridian through the pyramid, right, it would dissect Egypt basically in the 2 right triangles. So if you wanted to solve for like tangent or theta or something like that. So now we're talking about trigonometry.
Wow.
Right? We talked about geometry. All this taking place on the continent of Africa. And by the way, Egypt is in Africa, family. It is not in the Middle East.
Hello, is this thing on?
Right? So, and if you want to get even technical about it, even if you go further, Israel sits on the African tectonic plate. It's the northeast extension of Africa, right? And it extended all the way to the Indus Kush Valley in India today, right? All those people were Kushites. We're all Kushites. And just like you said, that genius is etched in our DNA. Just like even some of the trauma that we might carry from the Ma'afa, but that greatness is etched in our DNA too, and we just need that spark for it to bring us out. We need teachers, we need people like you, Wendy, to bring that out and share that with our young people, and who only knows what we can do.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's interesting you talked about the books that were laying around, and unfortunately, I think our young people, they're like, book, what's that? Because if it's not shiny, doesn't flash across the screen, they're not interested. They're not interested. So, and I grew up with some of those books and just reading some of the greats, and learning even from others. What say for a young people, how do you engage them? How do you engage our young people and get them interested?
Yeah, that's a good question. I get that one a lot. I mean, for me, first of all, you got to be engaging with you got to be interacting with them somehow, right? I don't care if it's like mentoring groups, whatever it is, right? Like that, right? I'm a big fan of field trips. I'm a big fan of field trips, man. You got to take kids out and let them see stuff like that, right? Like, like when I first started going to some of these bookstores that I go to, right, I was just fascinated, and the stuff is shiny. I mean, the books are like, incredible. If I show you books about the Dogon, you see a book like this that the people that knew about the dwarf star that has a 50-year elliptical around the Sirius B star, and they know, and they see that with their naked eye, and those people still live on Earth today, right? And then, but here's what I also said, Wendy: the internet is a powerful thing, right? It is a game changer. I think it helps level the playing field, especially for us. It's a great tool if you know how to use it. And like, so something that may have taken me like 40 years of acquired knowledge, you might be able to cut that in half. You might be able to cut that time down just a little tiny bit if you just search and do it like that, right? But I think that number one, we need to, we just need to get in front of them. We need to slow them down. We need to do some field trips. And, hey, let's make it fun, right? Because the historians that really get across to people, they like psychologists, comedians, scientists and everything like that, right? That's what I find. And I guess, you're not going to get everybody. You're not going to get everybody to believe in it right away. What we're talking about here is not a panacea or anything like that. We're hoping to save, 4 or 5 out of 10. But I noticed that when I do a presentation like this and the kids show up, they're blown away. The presentation I did in New York, the kid was mad because I was moving too fast on my slides, because he had heard of the pictures, saw some of the pictures, and he wanted to incorporate them into a Black History app that he had created.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'll get stuff like that, or I'll get people to be like, they'll be like, wow, how do you know all that kind of stuff? Where's your notes? Can I get a copy of the presentation or something like that, right? And I'm like, there's no notes, man. You know what I mean? Or they're just fascinated by it like that, and they want to hear more. So, baby steps. I think this is the time. The time is better now because the vicious attack on us is just so obvious. We didn't have to wait for this person down there in Florida to start talking about, not wanting to teach Black studies and stuff like that, when I've been learning about white folks and Europeans and everybody else all my life, and it was compulsory.
Right.
You understand?
Mm-hmm.
And, like Dr. John Henrik Clarke said, we are the missing pages of world history.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't think there's going to be any healing or any kind of like understanding until our story is told.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the healing, it has to start within first. We have to accept it and recognize and start it. But like you said, meeting the young people, I think it's meeting them where they are,
Absolutely.
meet them where they are. But we also have a generation that somehow, and I don't know what happened, because though I was there, like I said, my household was very different.
Right.
The school, we were always the only African-American family in the schools until I got to high school. But one time we had to memorize the Great American Dream. And my dad was like, but that's not our dream. You know, Robert Frost to fling my hair and golden hair and, you know, things like that. And my dad was like, you have to memorize that because that's what the school says. But when it's time to get up and recite your poem, you're going to do a dream deferred, you know, or like, so whatever they did, we did it because that was the requirement for school. But there was another part that we did at home. There was another book report that we had to do. So we had to do theirs, but we also had to do ours. So I don't know what happened to the generation, but I feel like there's a generation that are the parents to these young people that we're trying to reach, that I feel like they missed some of it too. You know, do we work on the children in hopes that they will reach to the parents, or what do we do?
No, I think that we got to work on both, right? You know, so that's like anytime I'm doing a presentation, I'm trying to market to parents and the children.
Mm-hmm.
You know, well, I want them both to come out, because it's important. Because, like you said, you wouldn't believe. I mean, people. I'm talking about people with high power degrees, man. I mean, they're sitting at a table with me, like, how, really? You know, and I'm like, where you been?
Right.
You know, so we gotta make the parents a part of it too. And again, like, make it fun, right? And you know, I mean, there's that's something for us to work on. You know, I don't have the answer to that. I wish I did, but I just know that, you know, through organizations I'm a part of, you know, like, you know, Omega Psi Phi, for example, and up here in New York, you know, like our STEM program we have, and just, you know, working with those kids, man, taking them to like the science museums and things like that. You know, for example, when they had Pi Day one time, you know, when it lined up like the 3.1415, not whatever that was, and we did that, but we had the parents right there.
Right.
You know, the parents were right there with us, right? You know, we bring them in, we bring them all into the same place, right? And then, you know, you also got to have the right people in front of kids too, right? You got to have the right people in front of kids because, you know, I mean, you know, you got to be genuine. You know, if you're fake, you know, that they'll sniff that out in a minute like that.
Right away.
So, you know, we somehow or another we have to infuse in it because, I mean, you know, the story about us, I mean, you can pretty much infuse it into any facet of learning today. You know, you just mentioned math. You know, I mean, you know, science. You know, I mean, art. I mean, music. We can weave that in anywhere. I mean, I got a book here. I don't know where I got it. Man, I got so many books up here. I don't have it, but there's a book called The Star of Deep Beginnings by Dr. Charles Finch. And he has a chapter in there just even talking about how music was like refined at its highest level and everything like that. You know, you think about, you know, the beats and pulses of the universe and everything like that. So yeah, so we just got to start somewhere, you know, to spark that interest, and then we just take it from there. Then we just build on it, right? But I like the visuals. I like the field trips, right? Like I like anytime I travel, you know, I'm looking for like particularly Black bookstore, museum, you know, university museums, you know, University of Chicago, you know, Orion Institute, Egyptology. You know, you got the University of Pennsylvania Museum down in Philly. You got the Boston Museum of Fine Art that got, man, maybe one of the second or third largest collections from Kemet up there. You know, because George Reisner from Harvard was the one that founded the 25th dynasty in the Sudan. You know, Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. I mean, you know, you just go to these places and not even just. I mean, it's important for us to learn who we are too, but we want to know everybody's culture too, right? We want to be well rounded because everybody else knows who we are. You think they don't? Why is our stuff in every museum around the world, and they won't give it back? You
Absolutely. Know? I think that's a major theme in a lot of things. I wanted to ask you how you feel and what you think about what I would call cultural appropriation. So thinking about when you say they got a lot of our stuff and they won't give it back. What do you think it's flattering, or do you think it's, you know, they're imitating, or they're trying to take what's ours, our culture? What do you think about it?
Yeah, I'm not flattered at all. You know what I mean? Because number one, I know who I am. Number two, they have no memory. You understand? We have such a long memory, Wendy. We go back so far, right? And when, for example, I always take there's a great picture by I promise you, I got to work on my French. So I'm gonna get that Babel software, man, work on my French. But I think the man's name is Vivian Denon, and there's a picture of him. I guess he was sketching when Napoleon goes into Egypt or Kemet in 1798. He brings in his scholars, he brings in his savants, right? And they're, I mean, they're up there like mapping out everything like that, right? So they know us better than anybody, right? But I'm saying like, so the classical writers, they give credit. Like if you read about people like Thales, who was the first Greek to study in ancient Africa or Kemet, his prize student, Pythagoras, who was there, studied there for 22 years, didn't even graduate, right? But he gets credit for being a Pythagorean theorem, right? He's a great marketer. We just have to, push our narrative, right? We need to push the story from our lens, like I'm saying, like that, and let them know that this does not come. They've created absolutely nothing, right? Now you get some who blatantly just go out there and steal and try to say it's theirs. Go out there to Vegas and look at all them fake pyramids out there, and then white quote unquote sphinxes out there, right? But like when you think about, so when the Greeks came in Kemet in 332 BCE under Philip of Macedon and Alexander the Great, they come in 332. When you think about their pantheon of gods and everything like that, they're all based on ancient African, spiritual sciences.
Right.
And then the Romans come in 30 BCE, and they do basically the same thing. Because you're in school and they're always comparing the Roman gods to the Greek gods, right? That. Well, the one thing about Greece and Rome is that when they came into Kemet, it wasn't really a destructive inquest. They emulated the society. So whereas maybe the political structure may have changed, and we talk about a 3,000-year history here, the political structure may have changed, but the culture stayed intact because they emulated the culture. And then when you get to like around the 600s AD or AC, when the Arabs come in, that was destructive, right? Where it's just rape, pillage, and destroy. So yeah, they are getting over on us out there today on our story. But then a lot of times, we let them because we don't know better.
We don't know.
We let them, and listen, Wendy, nobody beats us, right? Nobody beats us. We beat ourselves, right? And there's no place that was clearly evident of when we went into Europe in 711 AD, when the Moors went in and conquered Spain and Portugal, or Andalusia, if you will. And we under General Tariq, and we were there until January 2nd, 1492, when they made the last Nasrid Sultan Boabdil surrender. But that was the Dark Ages when we went in there, right? That was the Dark Ages, right? There was nothing going on there. The Romans had been kicked out by the Vangoths and the Visigoths, the Germanic tribes who came from the north, and they had nothing, right? No books, no nothing. And we went in there, and one of the first things we took in there? Soap, right? Because they weren't bathing, right? They might have been taking 1 or 2 baths here. We took the concept of baths there. We took mathematics, like I said, algebra, geometry, trigonometry, that whole sequence when you get to high school. We took that there, the concept of a fraction. We took everybody got an education, didn't matter if you were a woman or not. So the first university in Europe, University of Salamanca, was Cambridge and Oxford were patterned off that university, right? We gave them everything, the concept of a 4-course meal, how to dress and change your clothes, foods and spices, lighted streets, those castles over there when you were going to school that you were told built by Knight so-and-so and so-and-so, like Alhambra at Granada, for example, was built by us.
Wow.
And then they take all that knowledge, all that information, and use it against us. And then, once 1492 comes, now you got the race to conquer the world, and that would usher in the period of slavery and stuff like that.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. And it's amazing to hear that. I don't know how anyone could begin to hear some of these things and their mind not become open, and curious and hunger and thirst for it. So I want to ask about, you mentioned field trips. Where are some of the places that your studies have taken you? Where are some of your favorite places? Say I can go on a field trip anywhere I want to go. Where would you advise me to go first?
Yeah, well, I guess I'm domestic in that regard, but that Boston Museum of Fine Art is amazing.
Okay.
The Boston Museum of Fine Art is amazing, right? I mean, as soon as you step in there, you start seeing pictures of like Menkaure from the Fourth Dynasty and stuff like that. Being in Pennsylvania, the University of Pennsylvania, the museum down there is dynamite. You also have the Philadelphia Art Museum, right? I don't know if anybody have ever seen, you ever see that picture of that Moorish chief? There's a picture called the Moorish chief. I don't have it around here anywhere like that, but that picture is at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. But then I'm gonna tell you a really cool place. There's a bookstore in Baltimore called Everyone's Place. It's on North Avenue. I don't think I've ever been in a place like this. And I mean, I'm talking about Barnes and Noble or wherever you want to say. It's called Everyone's Place Cultural Center. And it's on North Avenue. It's deep in our community. That place, those folks, I think they've been around like 30, 40 years. They got everything in there from ancient African history. They got modern stuff in there. They got your oils in there. They got your clothing. You go down there and get your bean pies. That's one of the reasons why I go down there. Your jewelry and stuff like that. And so you could be like, hey man, do you have this book called Medu Neter by Jacob Carruthers? And if it's not on the stacks, man, they get on the phone and make a phone call, and somebody comes walking up those stairs, man, from their warehouse with the books. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
Wow.
They got everything. There's only one book I asked them for that they didn't have, and it's called The Birth Dearth by I forgot this guy's name, Gutenberg, The Birth Dearth, right? About I guess the decline in European civilization, stuff like that. That book is probably thousands and thousands of dollars on the internet. You can't get it, right? Usually they get books like that, but they didn't have that. You got Hakeem's Place, another great bookstore on 52nd and Market Street in Philadelphia, which has, I think I might even read it in the Penn Live, is now a national landmark down there. They've been around for 65, 70 years.
Wow.
Another great place. And then obviously, you got Washington, D.C., right? You got, you got the African American Museum down there. And there's a bunch of museums scattered around the country, right? So you don't have to spend a lot of money to go outside the country, to go to the Cairo Museum or places like that in Kemet. But you could just start local stuff. You could probably even, you know what? You could probably even start in your local community, because I'm pretty sure the historical societies there got something that's going on about the great stuff that goes on in your local community. I know my cousin, Jeff Kirkland, did a whole project on just Blacks in York, Pennsylvania. Mapped out the whole thing, and the community just came rallying around that thing, man. And he uses that not just even during Black History Month. He uses that all throughout the year, with the kids, with the adults, with everybody, right? So I just think as long as we pick some place and start somewhere, and then we can build on it, right? I'll just give you one last point. So even for example, right here, I live in Danbury, Connecticut, and the opera singer Marian Anderson spent a great portion of her life here. Well, they have a Marian Anderson museum right downtown Danbury here.
Wow.
And I was here probably 20 years. And I took a field trip one day and went and checked it out. It was amazing. It was amazing, right? You know, to see like, you know, all her dresses, where her studio was, to see where she lived, you know, to see the stories where, I mean, she did her own shopping. You know, she wasn't riding around in limos and stuff like that. And just to see what she represented and just our history here in this country, right? I mean, I was blown away by something like that. We should do stuff.
Absolutely.
We can do stuff like that.
Absolutely. I think that's an excellent, excellent point. And I'm glad that you put it that way, because I think a lot of people feel like they can't, you know, oh, I can't go there. Oh, I won't be able to go there. Oh, he's gonna tell me, go here, go here. And can start in your, you know, in your community, finding
Yes.
out what's happened in your community. And I think the more you know, the more you grow, you know,
Right.
so you will want to learn more and do more and travel more. Do you find, and I think this is kind of one of those big debates, do you find that there's a difference in how the information is received in, say, the Northeast versus maybe the South, versus even the West Coast? Do you find that there's a divide in it? You laugh.
You know why I'm laughing? I'm laughing because I was at a party this weekend in New York, right? Upstate New York. And somebody asked me, did I go to an HBCU? And they were like, it was like HBCU, PW, was a private, what is it, right? And I just thought it was hilarious. It was hilarious, right? But I just told you, I gave a presentation to the National Panhellenic Council at Daytona Beach, Florida, deep South, right? And I didn't really see any difference between the folks I gave that presentation to in Mount Vernon, New York.
Okay.
Right? Because when I was hitting them over the head with that knowledge, man, their jaws are probably still on the ground. and the feedback is great. But then it comes to be like, listen, you know what? We want more. Can we break this down in smaller pieces or smaller chunks, right? And I'm like, absolutely, right? Because like anytime I'm doing something, you know, and I got an hour and a half or something, like I'm kind of like racing because I just want you. I'm just trying to like take you through, let you skate through the broad canopy. But when you start getting into it, but listen, if I guess to use that term, if you're not woke or whatever like that, it don't matter where you are. Your response will be the same. You'll be like, wow, I can't believe it. And I'm talking about folks, man, and it don't matter the social economic status, Wendy. I mean, I was with, you know, folks yesterday, like, you know, that rose to the top of their professions, you know, IBMs or whatever like that. You know, they retired right now. And they know I do this, and they're like, hey, Kirkland, I heard you were doing this X, Y, and Z like that. What were you talking about, right? And you know, when I was just trying to explain what they're doing, and I'm pretty funny, right? I mean, I think that's part of my hook when I'm talking about this stuff, right? I inject some humor into it, and they were just like, you could just see the wheels turning, right? You understand? Mm-hmm. So, but that's why we're put here, right? We're put here to grow in knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. You know, one of the things, like if you ever look at any of the pyramids or the temples over in ancient Kemet, there's a symbol at the entrance. It's a winged disc with two cobras on it, right? Number one, symbolizing the battle of good over evil, but it also means know thyself. You're put here to know yourself. That's almost like the greatest good. George G.M. James talks about that in the opening of his book, Stolen Legacy, the greatest that one must aspire to. You know, this is like a standard book to read right here for this kind of stuff, right? So it don't matter, you know, it don't matter, right? But the key is just like, you know, number one, I mean, like I always tell you got to start somewhere, right? And so if you're reading good books like the one I just showed you, or, you know, this is another standard one right here, The Destruction of Black Civilization by Dr. Chancellor Williams. These couple of books right here are so well written that, you know, you'll be like, hey, listen, you know what? I'm kind of getting it right. I want to know more. Or, you know, like this one right here by Dr. Charles Fitch, you know, Echoes of the Old Dark Land. You know, he relates this stuff to the scriptures and everything like that. You know, it's like very interesting stuff, right? And and then, the complex stuff, I mean, you'll eventually pick that up after you keep reading it about 7 or 8 times like I have. But, it's just good stuff, right? Once you get into it, but we got to slow down sometimes too, Wendy, because, we live in a world that's moving at warp speed. Everybody's in a hurry, and it takes a certain amount of patience and discipline to sit down and read a book, right? But if you want the cliff notes, you can jump on. I mean, and you got to be careful, right? But there's hundreds of YouTube videos out there on this kind of stuff. All you got to do is just like do a search on Kemet or Nubia or Kush, and you're gonna get a million people coming up there trying to show you. But at least you'll get an idea on like what they're talking about, maybe what the people look like, the geography, because that's why one of the first things I do when I do a presentation, I actually show a map. Because most people that come into the world, according to my professor Kaba Kamene, he says people ask themselves these 3 questions. Who am I? Where am I in the world? And how in the world did I get here? Right? So he keeps it really simple, right? And basically the stuff. And here's the thing, right? This information, probably 90% of it, I got it from white writers.
Wow.
Right? Theodore Secoulis, people like Flanders Petrie, Godfrey Higgins, Anacalypsis, Gerald Massey, Egypt, the Light of the World, people like Alvin Churchward, Signs and Symbols of Primordial Man, this guy, Griot, that writes about the Dogons. We never hear about this man, William Lil Hansberry, who was really the father of ancient African history, but he came along at such a time where he couldn't get a PhD. There was nobody to measure him. He wrote a book called African and Africans as Seen by the Classic Writers, like Herodotus, and they're the ones that the stories out there, they just, the people, they just don't tell you about it, and they can't tell you that you're great and that the world civilization is built on you when we try to enslave you. When Constantine Valdi's book came out, Ruins of Empires, this book was banned in the United States. It's a French guy.
Mm-hmm.
He made a comment, I'm just going to read it to you. He said, there are a people now forgotten, discovered while others were yet barbarians, the elements of the arts and sciences, a race of men now rejected from the society for their sable skin and frizzled hair, founded on the study of the laws of nature, those civil and religious systems which still govern the universe. He said that in the 1700s. Wow. And then, like I said, when you get over there and you excavate in tombs and you seeing this greatness, and for example, when Champollion walked into one of those tombs during like the Middle Kingdom around like 1900 to 2000 BCE, and he sees a tableau that shows the hierarchy of men at the time, and it shows the Egyptian sitting next to the god Osar, and they call him the man par excellence. And then he says, he's writing a letter home to his brother. Next, there is no mistaking that man. That's like the blue-black Nubian, right? There's no mistaking there. Mm-hmm. Africa in his core. And then he says, after that, there's like the Indo-European. And then he says, last but not least, the lowest on the human totem pole, and I'm ashamed to say, his name is Tamu, an utter savage. He write a letter back home to his brother. And you can go throughout, you can go to Ramsey III's tomb, and there's a tableau to the day that was excavated by a man named Karl Lepsius, a German Karl Lepsius, that basically shows the same thing, right? So imagine that. You're on top of the world, you're going around conquering people like that, and then you see that you've done nothing, right? So what do you think they did when they come back? Man, listen, man, they writing the books, man. They can do whatever they want to do. They certainly weren't telling us that. And that's how it's been up until now. There's no reason why this stuff should not be compulsory in schools. I think there's only a couple of states where it's compulsory.
Right.
Connecticut is one. It was legislated. But then they had to sell out. Well, I probably shouldn't say that. They probably had to sell out a little bit because now you got to include other brown people, right? Come on, man. We
Yeah.
black people, man, come on, brown people. Man. They had to set out a little bit, include like Latinx, whatever. All these terms they keep creating, man, right?
Right. They keep
We,
coming
we,
up with
we,
something new. Yeah.
Wendy, we ain't bothering nobody.
No.
We ain't bothering nobody. I just saw a thing where, for example, one of my professors I study under, his name is Dr. David Imhotep. He wrote this book called "The First Americans Were Africans," right? You ever see those Olmec heads they got down in like San Lorenzo and Tres Postos in Mexico? Those big African heads down there.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you got people trying to tell you right now that they're not black people. Now, I ain't never seen no white folks with no big nose, no big lips, no Dolly Costa-Failure shaped head.
Yeah.
We leave our calling card everywhere we go. And I saw something that I think when they were doing something with the Juneteenth down in Texas, somebody was making some murals and somebody might have painted them Olmec heads on there, and then people went crazy down there and made them take it off there. Talking about there were no black people in America. Man, we are the indigenous people of every continent on earth.
Absolutely.
Because if we wouldn't have if we wouldn't have crossed that 51st parallel 50,000 years ago after the ice age melted, there'd be nobody on earth. Right? The world would be we all be Africans, man. It wouldn't be no other people. Right?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
and that the evidence is there for that. Ivan Van Sertima did that in his book that came before Columbus. Africans have been sailing around the world, with the Phoenicians, right? You got the people from the Mali Kingdom, Al-Bukhari, sailed around the world and stuff like that. Man, we knew the world was round way before Columbus started. We've been transversing the globe, and we've been here, and we leave our calling card everywhere we go. Right? There's pyramids in Mexico, in Chiapas, Mexico. They got pyramids down there, Wendy. You go inside, it's black people.
Wow.
Right? And they even tell you the story where they got their knowledge from, the Cushites.
Wow.
So now how you gonna try? So Wendy, they know this. Everybody knows it. Them folks know it. But what do they do about it? They ignore it.
Nothing.
And they'll ignore it as long as you let them ignore it, right? So that's why, you got people like me who are like, like when I was growing up, there was a saying out there that said, if you want to keep something from black folks, you do what?
Put it in the book.
Listen, I opened up the book tonight. I've been opening up the book.
Absolutely.
Need to start calling my presentation. We open up the book right now. And if you don't believe anything I'm saying, when you think about those tombs and those pyramids and everything like that over ancient Kemet, right? Kemet meaning land of the blacks, right? It's almost like our story. There's another thing. They say the writing is what?
Fundamental.
The writing is what?
What?
The writing is on the wall.
Oh, the writing is on the wall. Okay.
Our story. It's almost like our ancestors left us this blueprint. Number one, to let you know who they were, right? Let you know where you came from, what you stood for, and I'm talking about. They were governed by a principle called Ma'at, M-A-A-T, which stands for truth, righteousness, justice, equality, reciprocity, balance, and order, right? Symbolized by the ostrich feather, right? Where you get the concept of your first angel from. They did everything like that with exactness and precision. And it's almost like they left us this story or this blueprint on what we must do.
Wow.
Right?
Wow. That is so, that's deep. That's deep. And yes, you did. You opened the book up tonight. I've been, I don't know if you know this, but I've been taking notes and the bookstores, and I'm sure your book collection is like an oasis. I love a book. I love books. So I've been writing down some of these things, and anyone that's watching, they'll be able to go back and replay it. So it's good that you held up the books for them to see. And I think that it is so important. It's so important to have these types of conversations, and your passion for it. I can see why their mouths will be on the floor, and why that curiosity of it is ignited because you just bring it to life. And so and I know what you say to be true, because like I said, I grew up in a household where this is, these are things that my parents, talked about. But of course, at that age, I thought, they just, I felt like, okay, my parents are like these civil rights activists. They don't know, but I get it. I get it. So let me ask.
One quick thing, there's a running joke on me with my friends, right? They be like, man, you get that brother on the phone, you ain't getting off, right? And then lastly, this guy said to me one time over the summer, he said, Kirkland, I was talking to one of my professors, and he said, man, if you read 50 books, that's kind of like the equivalent of a PhD, right? So I said, 50 books? I said, is that all? I said, man, I got 50 books on my nightstand right now today. You see, I'm pulling them out right now, right?
Yes.
Look at that one right there. You look at that debate that was going on with Kyrie and all that. This book was written in 1905.
Yes.
This book was written in 1905.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Come on now.
Wow.
Yeah, anyway, let me stop.
I love a book. In fact, I prefer a book over reading online. I want to touch it and feel it and turn pages and things. And so
experience. You want experience.
Yes, absolutely. So what's next for you? What do you do next? What's on the horizon for you?
You know what? I'm just waiting to feel the vibration. You know what I mean? I'm waiting to see where the creator, guides me. I get a lot of feedback from people saying I need to do X, Y, and Z, create podcasts and everything like that. But I'm being patient with that. I think if I wanted to try to monetize this right now, I think I probably could do it with some success. But right now, I'm just continue to read and study and to be better at what I do. I'm just giving this information to the community right now and the family, right? And when that time comes, I'll know, and then I'll do something. But right now, I'm just doing this right now, right? Yeah.
And it's a great thing. It's so needed with where we are in society right now. We need that. We need to know ourselves. We need to know, like you said, we need to know who we are, where we came from, and how we got here. And that's so important for all of us. So I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And I know I'm standing in for Nate Gadsden, but I'm certain that he would, I can say it with confidence, that he would say, you have to come back again, and we have to do this again. And maybe I can push him out the wayside, because I have like a million more questions to ask, and I want to hear more, and I want to learn more, and I want to find out more. So are you, I heard you on a podcast, which is when I heard of you first. Are you on any podcasts? Do you have any projects? Do you do Facebook page? What kind of information?
No, I'm not messing around with that. But what I can do is, they just sent me the link to the piece I did down in Florida. So I'll send that to Nate and just have him share that with you.
Oh, please do.
Yeah, I'm just grateful for the opportunity. I appreciate you guys having me.
Please
I really
do.
I'm humbled. I'm honored. Just to be able to come before the people like this and do this right, because you gotta have the evidence. And like I always preface all my presentations, don't believe anything I'm saying here tonight, family. Don't believe a word I've said here tonight. I know there got to be some fact checkers on here, because even my sons used to fact check me, right? For probably about 10, 15 years, I only had an audience of 3. And then he had the nerve to be fact checking me like, Daddy, wow, man, you know what? I was in the back, man, checking it out, man. You were right, man. I was like, yeah, you're my first student, man. You probably got a degree in this stuff already, right? Don't believe a word I say. Go look at it for yourself. And then lastly, it's funny, because next time I'll do a slideshow, right? The Vatican has a picture of a pine cone in the middle of it. A pine cone, which is a replica of your pineal gland. Okay. Which is your third eye and the seat of your soul,
Oh,
right?
wow.
Why do they have that there, right? I'll leave it up to your imagination. Why would they have that sitting right there in the middle of the Vatican, right? This is
Wow.
your third eye. You can't pull the wool off your third eye. Some people may talk too fast, or magician's hands move too fast, right? But your third eye lets you know that no, it knows the truth, right? Right? Jacob said when he's on the run in the Bible, he stopped. He's in the middle of nowhere. He says, "I found God at Peniel. I found God at Peniel," and he built a monument there. I'm just
Wow.
paraphrasing, right? I promise you, Pastor, I'll be in Bible study next Wednesday. I'm just paraphrasing. I'll be in Bible study next week. I promise you, 6:30. I'll be there. I don't care. Live or Zoom, I'll be there. I'll get the exact words down.
That was almost like a Medea scripture, but I got it.
It's legitimate though. Go look it up though. Go look it up. Go look it up.
I'm a fact checker too. I've got my tablet here, my phone right here. I am too. I'm a fact checker. I hope and it would be so nice. I do a podcast on Mondays, right here on the Voice 17104. It's called Let's Talk About It, and I do it with my son. He's 18 years old.
Okay.
We started it just to have an intergenerational conversation, and I would love to have him, because most our viewers are our family, my age group parents, but also his friends in his age group, so that we have sort of a mixture. And I would love to hear and have an opportunity for him and for us to be able to share that. And I'll find a way for us to share that, and for me to get feedback from him as well, because this is so important. This is so important. I don't want to go over our time.
Sure.
I don't want to go over our time, but this, as I thought it would be, this is amazing and very interesting. And I will be stopping at some of those bookstores. I actually have an opportunity to go to the African American Museum in DC this weekend.
Okay.
And so I'm very, very excited about it. And I will be sharing this Griot Collective session with my family and my friends and my peers and colleagues, so that they too can hear all the things. So don't be surprised when you start to hear, and you're about to blow up, when you hear all these things and people are calling, because they're going to want more. They're going to want more. They're going to want to know more and want to hear more.
Listen, I just really appreciate it. Like I said, when I've been doing this, right, I never did it, for monetary gain. When I did it for the love, right? I just had this insatiable love affair with Black people, right?
Yes.
And a lot of it was personal, because when I was in school, wasn't nobody talking about me, and all they was doing was hating on me. And I just thought that, I just knew there had to be something else for me in the world, right? When I thought about where I came from, when I thought about my parents, my grandparents, and what they represented, I knew it had to be something more to it, right? So I pressed on, and like I said, you got to understand something, Wendy. I got a day job, man, and it's like, how hard it is, to be going through all these books. Man, I got 3 books that just came in. I hate buying off of Amazon. I'm going to confess it tonight, family. I only sold out a little bit, but I got 3 books from Amazon. The other day they came on a Sunday, man.
Yes.
And one of them actually was on the pineal gland.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But
Mm-hmm.
but other than that, right now, like I said, I'm just doing this for the community, and I know you guys got to go. I just appreciate you having me. I really do. I'm humbled, I'm honored, and I just want to thank you.
Well, I appreciate you on behalf of Reverend Dr. Nathaniel Gadsden, the Griot Collective, and the Writers Workshop. I just want to thank you. We are honored to have you here. I want to say a special thank you to Minister Chris Thomas from the Voice 17104. And as I always say, if ever you're scrolling, or any of our listeners are just on the internet scrolling through, in between the 200 books that you're reading, stop by the Voice 17104. He's got a lot of interesting people, a lot of interesting conversations and things like that. And for our listeners, if you have an idea for a show, for a podcast, or anything like that, the person you want to contact is Minister Chris Thomas at the Voice 17104. And they are now the Voice TV. So it's now a TV. So this is history in the making right here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So to have The Voice TV, The Voice 17104. So you were absolutely correct when you said start in your community. Mr. Kirkland, it has been truly, truly an honor talking to you. I'm excited. I know that they say, each one teach one or each one reach one. You reached one today, and I promise you that I will pass it on and make sure that it goes to others. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing with the community and with the family. We pray that you will be able to continue to do that, that it will open up and opportunities and blessings will continue to come for you as you bless us with this information. We need it. We need you. And so we need that information. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Hotep family. Thank you.
Hotep to you as well.